They came without warning. The Veylan Pax, carnivores older than empires, proud hunters who had brought entire worlds to heel, descended on Earth not with diplomacy, not with negotiation, but with nets and teeth. To them, humanity was a curiosity, another fragile mammal to break and feast upon. But arrogance blinds even the sharpest predator. They did not come for armies first. They did not test the strongest among us. They did not probe our weapons or cities. They took a child. One moment she was walking home from school, her small backpack bouncing on her shoulders. The next, the sky tore open, and a hunting skiff dropped like a hawk. She screamed as claws closed around her, tiny hands flailing, legs kicking against the impossible. That scream was heard, not just by her family, not just by her town. It traveled farther than the Veylans could ever imagine, because humanity has always been good at one thing above all else, remembering the sound of a child in danger. And when the galaxy replayed the footage later, broadcast by the predators themselves as a message of dominance, they didn't see prey cowering. They saw the moment something ancient stirred in humanity's blood, because predators, in their arrogance, had just reminded us what it felt like to be hunted. And that was the last mistake they ever made. Before I continue this story, make sure you've subscribed and left a like, because this tale is about how the galaxy learned the difference between prey and reapers. And trust me, you'll want to hear the end. The Veylans did not expect resistance. They had conquered 100 worlds. They thought humanity's cries would end the same way every species before us had ended, with silence. But silence was never our way. The first response was not from the military, not from generals or admirals or even governments. It came from parents, fathers who looked to the sky and swore vengeance, mothers who clutched their children tighter and whispered promises of fire. The Veylans thought they had taken one child. They had, without realizing, threatened them all, and the galaxy was about to learn what happens when humanity hunts back. The child's face flickered across the galaxy. The Veylans broadcast her capture like a trophy kill, their fanged maws spread wide in laughter. In their culture, prey was only prey if the hunt was witnessed. To them, this was entertainment, a demonstration, a warning. To humanity, it was a declaration of war. And across the stars, something strange began to happen. Alien empires who had once labeled us harmless watched closely. They knew the Veylans. They knew the endless tide of corpses left in their hunts. They whispered among themselves, "The humans will fall in days." But then, the first retaliation came. It wasn't from fleets. It wasn't soldiers. It was a single message sent across the net. 4 words, posted by an Earth civilian, picked up, amplified, repeated until it spread across every comm station in human space. Bring her back, alive. And those words spread like wildfire. Every forum, every news channel, every ship's broadcast band. Those 4 words united billions. The Veylans laughed. Pathetic, they thought. Soft, emotional, prey. Until the first Veylan raiding vessel went dark. No one knew how. It had been orbiting Mars, gloating, scanning, hunting. Then its systems went black. Emergency beacons flickered. Then silence. When rescue ships finally arrived, they found the Veylan cruiser adrift, its hull burned open from the inside. The crew? Gone. Not killed, not devoured. Vanished. The predators finally realized they weren't the only ones hunting. Whispers ran through the galaxy. Who destroyed that ship? Was it Earth's military? No fleet had moved. No government had taken responsibility. And yet, one predator ship had been gutted with surgical precision. The answer came in fragments. Security footage leaked, grainy, distorted. But one thing was clear. Humans were boarding ships. Civilians, not soldiers. Fathers, mothers, even teenagers. They were arming themselves with whatever they could build, tearing through alien steel like wolves in the dark. The galaxy shuddered. This was not prey. This was something else. The Valans had tried to take one child. Now humanity's children were everywhere, rising from their homes like embers from a firestorm. And the galaxy, for the first time, began to fear. Not for humanity's survival, but for its own. Because when the predators reviewed the recovered footage frame by frame, they saw something terrifying. In the wreckage of their ship, smeared in Valan blood, someone had scrawled 3 words in English. "We hunt back." The Valans called for reinforcements. Dozens of warships surged toward human space, their claws sharpened, their teeth bared. To them, Earth was still a farm that hadn't learned its place. They didn't care about one lost cruiser. They wanted to make an example of the entire species. But when their fleets entered orbit, something was wrong. The prey did not scatter. The prey did not run. The prey waited. Human ships, if you could even call them that, weren't sleek fleets of war. They were patchwork haulers, mining rigs converted into battering rams, fishing vessels carrying rail guns bolted on with welding sparks still burning hot. They were ugly, brutal, improvised. And when the first Valan vessel descended, they swarmed it like hornets. They didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like survivors. One ship rammed head-on into a predator frigate, tearing both apart in a fireball that lit up the sky. Others latched onto Valan hulls with magnetic claws, burning through steel with homemade plasma torches, dragging predators out of their own ships and into the void. The Valans expected prey screams. Instead, they heard laughter. On open comms, broadcast into every channel, came the voice of a human engineer, his tone ragged but alive with fury. "You thought we were prey? You've mistaken the shepherd for the lamb." Alien empires listened in horror as the Valans faltered. Ship after ship disappeared from the grid, and worse, whispers spread among the survivors. Whispers that the humans weren't simply killing, they were harvesting. Bodies were never found. Ships went silent and drifted empty. The few survivors who staggered back told stories that didn't make sense. Dark shapes moving through their ships without sound, human eyes glowing in helmet glass. No mercy, no surrender. Just relentless, patient killing. The word began as a whisper in the alien undernet. Not prey, not humans. The name spread the way fire spreads in dry grass. One alien merchant was overheard saying, trembling, "We thought they were weak, but they collect souls." Another, a soldier, spat in disgust. "They don't fight fair. They don't announce their hunts. They wait in the dark. They take you when you least expect it." The title solidified faster than any propaganda could. And then, the Valans made their second mistake. They released another broadcast intended to show their dominance, but instead it became their undoing. The child, the human girl, was shown again. Still alive, still caged. Her captors laughed. They mocked humanity's pathetic rebellion. But they didn't notice her eyes. She wasn't crying. She wasn't broken. She was watching, silent, burning with the same cold fire the galaxy now feared. And in the background of the recording, just for a moment, something flickered across the feed. A shadow, a human figure, crawling through the ventilation shafts of the Predator ship. The galaxy gasped. The Predators didn't even realize, but humanity did. We were already inside. The child wasn't forgotten. She wasn't helpless. She was the ember that the galaxy failed to smother. Inside the Valan ship, she sat in silence, memorizing every sound of the engines, every step of her guards, every flicker of the failing light overhead. They thought her powerless. But humans are not born empty. They are born watching, learning, waiting for the moment the cage door rattles just slightly open. That flicker in the feed hadn't been an accident. A human operative was already inside. Not a soldier. Not a decorated warrior. Just a scavenger who knew how to crawl through vents and hot wire doors. Humanity didn't send its best. They didn't have bests to send. They sent anyone who could move, anyone who refused to bow. And when he reached her cell, the child didn't cry out. She didn't scream. She leaned forward, whispered one word only humans could carry in their voice. Now? The man nodded, and the galaxy's story pivoted. The Valens never saw what came next, but others did. Their ship's security cams leaked, spreading through black markets, then into official networks, until half the galaxy had seen it. One man, one little girl, against an entire Predator crew. The footage showed shadows flickering through corridors, lights going out one by one. It showed guards dragged into darkness, their shrieks silenced mid-breath. And then, the cages. Dozens of them. Not just the child. Other species, captives from worlds the Valons had conquered and fed upon. When the doors burst open, when freedom was handed back, the Predators learned a horror they could never have predicted. Humans didn't just fight for themselves. They armed the others. A flood of former prey species, some skeletal from starvation, some trembling from trauma, picked up human-made blades, human-made tools, human-made rage, and followed the scavenger and the girl through the blood-soaked halls. The Predators lost control. Their own ship turned into a riot of fury and vengeance, corridors burning, their command signals drowned under a chorus of alien voices screaming for freedom. The final shot of the footage seared itself into the galaxy's memory. The child, standing on the bridge, her face smeared with ash, clutching the scavenger's hand. Behind her, a dozen different alien species stood shoulder to shoulder, armed and unbroken. And in the wreckage of the captain's chair, carved in with a plasma torch, were words no one would ever forget. We are not prey. We are reapers. The galaxy shuddered. Empires that had ruled for centuries began to panic. Alliances formed overnight, not against humans, but against the terror of what humans represented, unity born from the hunted. The Predators realized too late that they hadn't just taken a child. They had lit a beacon. The galaxy had always been ruled by the strong. That was the law, the excuse, the justification. Predators rose, prey cowered, and balance was kept by fear. But then came the footage. A child leading a rebellion inside the belly of a Predator warship. The phrase, "We are not prey, we are reapers." The sight of prey species, not broken, not cowed, standing shoulder to shoulder with humans. The Predator empires could not contain it. The recording spread like fire through oxygen, passing hand to hand, species to species. Each time it was watched, something stirred in the oppressed, something they had forgotten they carried. Hope. And with hope came rebellion. On the jungle world of Feralis, 1,000 chitin-skinned gatherers refused their harvest quotas, and instead armed themselves with tools turned into weapons. They shouted the human word reaper as they swarmed the guards. On the desert moon of Vela's own frontier, slaves broke chains in the night. Instead of fleeing into sandstorms, they carved human letters into stone walls, daring their captors to try again. On the trade routes, convoys that once meekly lowered their shields began ramming Predator patrols. Each crew carried one banner painted in crude strokes, a human skull wreathed in flames. The galaxy had cracked. The order of Predator and prey was bleeding into chaos. And yet, amid the rising fires of revolt, the Predators clung to one belief. The humans themselves are few, fragile, mortal. Burn the child, burn their kind, and the wave will end. But they didn't understand. Humanity had already been spread too thin across too many corners. Colonists, drifters, scavengers, soldiers, children, everywhere, just a handful. Each one carried the story now. Each one passed it to allies, whispering in the dark. And something even worse was happening. Prey species, once fractured, once too afraid to stand together, were beginning to see each other not as victims of different masters, but as brothers in arms. For the first time in galactic history, prey species spoke the same word for war. Reaper! The Valan High Lords summoned an emergency conclave. They watched the footage again, pausing frame by frame, desperate to find weakness. "Look at her!" one snarled, pointing at the human child. "She is just one, small, fragile. What power does she truly hold?" But another lord, quieter, shook his head. "She is not the power. She is the spark. The fire is everything behind her. We have not created prey. We have created something else." And then, for the first time in their long reign, the predators spoke words with fear in their throats. "If humans are not prey, then what are they?" The answer came from a message intercepted hours later, a rallying cry encoded in dozens of prey languages, but repeating one human phrase: "We are reapers, and reapers harvest predators." The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to hunt the hunters. The predators struck first. They had to. Armadas poured from the dark edges of empire, each vessel carrying orders. Find the humans, exterminate the spark, drown this fire before it becomes a storm. And for a time, they believed they were winning. On the mining world of Kraith, a single predator cruiser reduced a human outpost to molten glass. They broadcast the destruction across galactic channels, taunting prey species who dared whisper "Reaper." On the shattered moon of Joro, squads of hunters stormed colonies, dragging human settlers into the open. They displayed bodies, broken and burned, as if fear could erase defiance. But what they didn't understand was this: fear was no longer theirs to wield. Because on a swamp world called Nethra, something happened that none of the predators predicted. A single human technician, barely a soldier, not even armed, stood beside the Nethran tribes when the hunters came. He taught them how to break apart their own irrigation systems, turning water pumps into chemical sprayers, sludge into poison mist. The hunters marched in with rifles and armor. They left in shreds, choking on their own screams. The prey had drawn blood, and when the footage spread, the galaxy trembled. Across star systems, prey species who had once cowered in cages now tore open their own doors. Hunters sent to crush rebellions never returned. Predator patrols began to vanish along routes they had dominated for centuries. Each time a predator ship was ambushed, the survivors whispered the same horror. "They fight like humans. They fight like reapers." And the worst part? The humans themselves were not leading every battle. They were simply teaching prey how to fight, passing on scraps of strategy, fragments of brutality, lessons written in humanity's long, blood-soaked history of survival. It was enough. Every village became a fortress. Every farmer became a warrior. Every child carried the promise that if a predator came for them, they would not go quietly. The predator conclave raged in panic. "They should be breaking," one warlord roared. "They should be crawling to us on their bellies, begging to be spared." But instead, for the first time in galactic history, the prey were hunting their hunters. A Vaylon admiral spoke with a trembling voice. "The word Reaper is now chanted on worlds we have never conquered. Even in silence, they look at us with teeth." And then came the worst report of all. A single Predator battleship, flagship of their expansion fleets, had been captured intact, not by another Predator rival, not by a greater empire, but by prey. Prey armed with nothing but stolen tools and human guidance. The last transmission from that flagship chilled even hardened Predators. They are coming, not as prey, not as soldiers. They come as death. The galaxy had tilted. The balance was breaking. And for the Predators, the question was no longer how to win. It was how long they could survive. The Predators had always believed they alone knew the thrill of pursuit, the chase, the terror in their victims' eyes, the rush of dominance. They believed it was their birthright, but humans, when cornered, didn't just fight. They hunted back. And worse, they taught others how. It began on the broken plains of Halor 9, where a pack of predator raiders descended on scattered prey settlements. They expected an easy culling, a feeding spree. Instead, they walked into traps. The prey of Helor 9 had spent months training under human survivors. They learned not just how to fight, but how to wait, how to stalk, how to smile when their prey screamed. One by one, the predator raiders were isolated, snared, skinned of their weapons. Their armor was stripped, melted down, repurposed into jagged blades. By the time the raiding pack realized they were the hunted, it was too late. The Helor prey didn't kill quickly. They hunted for hours, drawing out the terror, savoring each reversal of power. When galactic eyes saw the footage, even the most hardened warlords felt their blood run cold. The prey had learned to enjoy the hunt, and that was the humans' darkest weapon, psychology. They whispered stories to every prey world they visited. They spoke of wolves who could stalk a herd for days, of lions who toyed with their victims before striking, of tribes who danced in the moonlight after each kill, painting their faces with the blood of their enemies. These were not just lessons in survival, they were invitations. And prey, who had once cried in fear, now laughed when they stalked a predator through the forest. They sang when they cut them down. They decorated their homes with broken fangs and cracked predator skulls. One predator general screamed in council, "They have infected the prey. This is corruption, not war." But another spoke quieter, shaking, "No, this is what they always were. The humans only reminded them." The name Reapers spread like wildfire, no longer whispered, now shouted in battle, sung in defiance, etched in the walls of burned predator fortresses. Predators found themselves afraid to sleep, for even in their dreams they saw prey with human smiles. But the humans were not finished. They had one last revelation to deliver, because up until now the prey had only been fighting locally, defending their homes, turning ambushes into victories. But soon, the humans would teach them something greater, something far worse. How to build a war of extermination, not defense, not rebellion, but a crusade. The predators had always believed in the inevitability of dominance. Prey existed to be eaten. Predators existed to rule. That was the order, the law, the truth etched into their DNA. But humans broke laws the way storms broke trees. It began with a single world, small, seemingly insignificant. A predator outpost on the edge of controlled space meant for staging hunts. The prey of Helor 9, newly reborn in blood, chose it as their target. With humans guiding them, they struck, not with fleets or armies, with methods no predator had ever considered. They sabotaged supply chains, released captured predator beasts into the streets, poisoned water systems, whispered terror into every corner of the outpost until the hunters looked over their shoulders in daylight. And then, when fear had rotted the spine of the outpost, the prey attacked. It wasn't a battle. It was an erasure. The garrison tried to flee, but every escape route was cut. Those who resisted were hunted down alley by alley. Those who surrendered were dragged into cages, forced to know the prey's reversal. When it was over, the predator outpost was gone. Its banners burned, its symbols smeared with blood. And in its place rose a crude monument, a towering pile of predator skulls, crowned with the mark of a human handprint. The galaxy watched in horror. This was no longer survival. This was organized. This was deliberate. This was war. And for the first time in their history, prey didn't flee after a victory. They stayed. They fortified. They renamed the world in their own tongue, though the humans gave it a simpler name, one that spread like wildfire. Reaper's Dawn. The predators scrambled to respond. Fleets were dispatched, armies were raised, generals swore revenge. But everywhere they turned, prey worlds rose up. The humans had lit too many fires. Each outpost, each colony, each farm planet. Prey who had once cowered now sharpened blades and whispered the same word in unison, Reaper. Worse still, the humans taught prey to think in strategies predators never considered. They weren't just hunters now, They were insurgents, saboteurs, tacticians. They fought wars not for territory, but for terror. A Predator admiral reported back in a broken voice. It is no longer about food. It is no longer about survival. They do not kill for necessity. They kill to make a point. They want us to know fear. And then came the first great twist. Because as fleets clashed and empires burned, another kind of war began, one within the Predator's own minds. They had spent generations believing prey were weak, mindless, helpless. Now they began to whisper among themselves. What if the humans were never prey at all? What if the Predators had made the greatest mistake in history by targeting them? The galaxy had called humans prey. Now the name Reaper was spreading faster than fire. But still, the Predators had not yet seen the full extent of what humanity could unleash. Because even among humans, there were those who thought the Reapers were holding back, and they had plans. The galaxy was not silent anymore. Every channel buzzed with the same trembling phrase, "The Reapers are awake." The Veer had started it. They were hunters who had never tasted fear. They stalked across worlds, taking what they wanted, feeding where they pleased. For centuries they had marked species like notches on their fangs. They thought humanity was just another entry on their list. But now, the Predators were running. The broadcasts leaked, one after another. A Veer hunting pack ambushed a convoy near the Helix trade route and vanished. Their blood-streaked ship was later found adrift, hull carved with human words in jagged letters, "We hunt the hunters." Another incident showed a recording, shaky but undeniable. Veer soldiers storming into a dark facility, laughing as they tore doors open, only to meet silence. Then, one by one, their body cams went dead. The last surviving feed caught the flicker of a small figure stepping from the shadows. A human child. The same one the Veer once claimed as prey. Her eyes burned with something beyond fear. Behind her, armored figures emerged like wraiths, humans, their weapons silent, their presence heavier than death. The galaxy replayed that video until the image of the girl was burned into every mind. The child they thought fragile, the child they tried to devour, she wasn't hiding anymore. She was leading. Empires began to shift. Allied fleets abandoned Veer contracts, refusing to work for them. Whole worlds went dark, terrified of being noticed. Some whispered that humans were no longer flesh at all, but something else, something reborn in fire and vengeance. The open loop remained. How did one child survive? Who was teaching her? And what would happen when she finally spoke? For now, silence answered. Humans moved like shadows, leaving wrecks and warnings. But everyone knew. The retribution wasn't random. It was building toward something. The galaxy had always known predators. But now, for the first time, predators knew prey could look back and smile. The first time her name appeared, it was whispered. One Veer patrol broadcasted a final panicked message before their channel went silent. "She is here. The Shadow Child walks among the Reapers." After that, the galaxy didn't just fear humans, they feared her. The truth leaked in fragments, each piece more chilling than the last. Survivors, rare, broken, trembling, spoke of her. Not a monster, not a soldier, not a beast, a child, a girl who should have been helpless. But she carried herself with the stillness of predators who know the kill is already theirs. Her presence twisted the battlefield. The Veer, who prided themselves on their perfect senses, found their instincts betraying them. They heard footsteps that weren't there. They smelled blood before the strike came. They swore she could look through walls, waiting for them. Entire hunting packs were slaughtered without her lifting a blade, because she didn't fight alone. She led the humans, and the humans had become something else under her gaze. The galaxy asked, what happened to her? How could a child endure what the Veer had done and rise like this? The answer was worse than speculation. Humans revealed, quietly, deliberately, that they had not saved her from the Veer. They had saved her through the Veer. The torment she endured carved away the illusion of weakness. The girl had seen the very heart of monsters and survived. And when she walked out of their cages, she carried with her every lesson about cruelty and every weapon humanity could forge from it. Her innocence hadn't been destroyed. It had been sharpened. She didn't hate the Veer. She studied them. She learned their ways. And she had decided the galaxy would learn one truth. Humans were not prey. Now the child became a myth. Some called her the first Reaper. Others claimed she was bait, a symbol humans deliberately let spread to unnerve predators everywhere. But every twisted wreck of a Veer vessel left the same message burned into its walls. You tried to make her prey. You made her our future. The galaxy didn't realize it yet, but a shift had begun. Predators across the stars, the Veer, the Orca, the Velox, all of them began to hesitate. Not because humans were many, not because humans were strong, but because one child walked among them, and humanity followed her shadow. The open loop widened. Was she just a symbol, or was she truly becoming something more, something even humans hadn't planned? At first, the galaxy believed it was coincidence. A child whispered about in broken transmissions, a few predator fleets gutted in the dark, a few symbols scrawled in blood and fire, but then the pattern emerged. The humans were not fighting for territory. They were not chasing conquest. They were not even hunting revenge. They were building fear. Predator worlds found their skies blackened with silent human vessels that came and went without firing a shot. Colonies woke to find entire garrisons gone, weapons racks emptied, and one chilling phrase burned into stone or steel. "We are watching." Merchants whispered of human agents that infiltrated predator strongholds, not to sabotage, not to kill, but to leave evidence they had been there. A knife in a sleeping den, a lock of hair in the command bridge, a child's drawing scrawled on a predator admiral's desk. The Veer, the hunters of hunters who once declared humans their destined prey, began to feel something they had no word for. Their language held terms for dominance, for hunger, for rage. But not for this. It was the humans who named it. It was called dread. The galaxy tried to explain the change away. Surely it was propaganda. Surely the shadow child was an invention. Surely humans were only pretending to be more than they were. But then came the confession of Admiral Keth. Once the most decorated Veer commander, Keth abandoned his fleet mid-hunt and fled into neutral space. He surrendered not for mercy, but because he could no longer endure the silence that followed him. He told the galaxy that the humans were not merely fighting, they were dismantling the Predator's most sacred weapon, the certainty of dominance. "Every time I close my eyes," Keth said before the council broadcast, "I see her, a small figure standing in the dark, and I know if I hear her breath it will already be too late. I was not defeated in battle. I was devoured in the mind." His words spread faster than human warships. What the galaxy didn't see, what no one but the humans themselves truly understood, was that this was not chaos. It was a strategy. The child was not their weapon. She was their symbol. She was the story humans wrapped themselves in, the story predators told each other in their sleep, the story whispered by refugees and carried in every signal across the void. The humans knew a simple truth. Weapons break, fleets fall, empires crumble. But fear, once it takes root, feeds itself. And so the humans had chosen their path. Not conquerors, not victims. They would be the shadow that turned hunters into prey. The galaxy braced itself for the inevitable question. If the child was only a symbol, then who was pulling the strings behind her shadow? And if she was not just a symbol, then what had humanity truly unleashed into the stars? The predators had built their empire on certainty. They were strong, others were weak. The hierarchy was unshakable, but certainty is fragile, and when the first cracks appear, the collapse is inevitable. It began with the Drown. A warrior race known for their blood ritual duels, they prided themselves on dying in combat, never yielding. Yet their war priests stopped sleeping. They muttered of shadows on the walls, of footsteps that never belonged to them. Their children whispered about human eyes at the window, watching, waiting. The drowned didn't fall in battle. They starved. Their armies refused to leave their fortresses, too terrified to hunt, too frightened to fight. When their food stores ran dry, they surrendered without a shot fired. Then came the Yakor fleets. 30 war cruisers entered human-claimed space, intent on proving to the galaxy that the Reaper myth was nothing more than propaganda. They transmitted their entire campaign live, every ship broadcasting their coordinates. The galaxy tuned in. Billions watched, and they saw 30 war cruisers blink off sensors, one by one, not in battle, not in a storm. No explosions, no wreckage, just silence. The final cruiser transmitted a single grainy image before vanishing. A small handprint on their forward view screen. Human, child-sized. The galaxy tried to reason with itself. Perhaps it was sabotage. Perhaps it was coincidence. Perhaps the predators had staged it themselves to save face. But deep down they all knew, reason had no place here. Humans weren't just fighting battles, they were rewriting reality. Behind it all, the human fleets moved with deliberate restraint. They did not conquer worlds, though they could have. They did not slaughter populations, though they had been wronged. Instead, they built the illusion that they were everywhere, that no wall could stop them, no army could hold against them, no predator could close their eyes without seeing the child in the dark. The humans had learned the oldest truth of survival. Predators only rule so long as prey believes in the hunt. Break that belief, and the hunter devours itself. Whispers grew into rumors, rumors into doctrine. Alien scholars began to rewrite their own texts, inserting human names into prophecies of destruction. Whole sects emerged, preaching that the shadow child was a cosmic judgment, not flesh and blood. For the first time in galactic memory, predator worlds abandoned the hunt. Entire species began adopting strange behaviors, locking doors, huddling in groups, refusing to leave home after dark. The galaxy's apex hunters had become prey in their own minds. And yet, as the galaxy trembled, a deeper, darker question spread among the few who dared to think clearly. Were humans truly just stoking fear, or had they unleashed something even they could not control? The galaxy had grown addicted to fear. Every council session, every broadcast, every intercepted transmission circled the same obsession, the Reapers. But while predators whispered and prey prayed, humanity prepared. Quietly, methodically, without fanfare. They called it the Veil. A fleet that wasn't a fleet. A weapon that wasn't a weapon. No predator could agree on what it was, only that the humans had built something vast, hidden beyond the rim. Rumors filtered out in pieces, 1,000 ships crewed by shadows, a weapon that could silence stars, a ghost army that bled through walls. None of it was confirmed. None of it was denied. And so, when the predators gathered their last coalition, a desperate armada of 70 predator races, they marched to war not against human ships, but against human myth. The coalition fleet was the largest ever assembled in galactic history. War carriers, gravity lances, devourer drones, all bristling, all ready to prove that humans were just flesh after all. They advanced toward the Veil's rumored location, their transmissions steady and loud, their arrogance rehearsed like theater for the watching galaxy. Billions tuned in to see humanity humbled. But as the armada crossed into the rim, the galaxy's greatest predators discovered something worse than resistance. They discovered emptiness. No fleets, no weapons, no humans, only silence. And then, one by one, their warships lost power. Lights snuffed out, weapons locked, engines frozen. Their screens filled not with coordinates or error codes, but a simple white room. In that room stood a human child. The predators roared, cursed, clawed at their controls, but none of it mattered. The broadcast was unstoppable, spilling not just into their own ships, but across every channel in the galaxy. The child tilted its head, smiling in that way only human children do, innocent, curious, and horrifying. Its small voice cut through every predator's mind. "You called us prey, but we were only waiting, and now the hunt is over." The coalition ships detonated, not in fire, not in explosion. They simply folded inward, collapsing into silence. In the span of a heartbeat, the greatest predator armada in history was erased. The galaxy screamed, because it wasn't just the destruction that broke them. It was the knowledge that humans hadn't needed to fight. They had chosen to end the hunt with a single move, like flipping over a board in a game they'd been playing all along. After that day, predators no longer debated whether humans were prey. They no longer debated whether humans were reapers. The only debate left was how long the galaxy itself could survive under their shadow. And yet, in the hidden chambers of Earth's command, one truth remained unspoken, locked behind grim faces and clenched jaws. The humans hadn't destroyed the predators with ships. They hadn't destroyed them with weapons. They had destroyed them with the Veil, a weapon so absolute that not even humanity dared to unleash it twice. The predators never returned from the Rim. 70 apex empires gone without wreckage, without corpses, without a trace. The largest predator armada in galactic history had folded into nothing, erased by a human whisper. The galaxy drowned in silence. Council halls emptied. Predator thrones lay abandoned. Even prey species, those who had begged for humanity's protection, looked upon Earth with a fear deeper than anything they had felt before, because they finally understood. Humans had not fought. They had not struggled, clawed, or bled. They had simply chosen, and choice, when wielded by a species that refused to die, was more terrifying than any fleet or weapon. Whispers spread faster than light. The Veil is not a fleet. The Veil is not a weapon. The Veil is something older, something waiting, something buried in humanity's bones. None could say if it was technology or instinct, madness or design, but all knew the truth. The predators had been hunting prey. Instead, they had awakened reapers. Earth remained silent after the strike. No victory broadcast, no demands, no celebration, only silence. And that silence screamed louder than war. In that silence, entire predator empires collapsed. Not from human fire, but from terror of what might happen if humans ever looked their way again. Ships were scuttled, worlds abandoned. Predator leaders destroyed their own arsenals, their own navies, desperate to prove to humanity they were not a threat. They were prey again. Willing prey, bending knee before the reapers they had tried to devour. And yet, within the bunkers of Earth, humanity did not cheer, because the truth was bitter, burning in their throats. The Veil had not been built to destroy predators. It had been built to contain something worse, something that slumbered in humanity's shadow, something even they were afraid of unleashing again. The predators had only seen its first breath. The galaxy would never know what slept beneath the Veil. But every species, predator and prey alike, lived with the same gnawing truth carved into their bones. Humans had been named prey. Now, they were named reapers. And if the reapers ever rose again, the galaxy itself would become their hunting ground.